This video is intended to walk you through the process for proofing your film. You will need a developed roll of 35mm film, and we're going to make a print of all of these negatives all at once on one piece of paper. I'm back here at my regular enlarger. I will make sure that I turn on my power supply, and the pieces of equipment that I need for this process are a piece of cardboard that is usually found down here on this corner shelf. There's a big bucket full of pieces of randomly shaped cardboard. I've got my photo paper right here in my box, and I've got one of these things right here, this hinged piece of glass. This is called a contact printer, and we're going to use it to make a print of all of our negatives all at once. Similar to a photogram, we want to make sure that our enlarger, the light from our enlarger, covers the entire space right here. So I'm going to get started by turning on the safe lights, bottom switch, turn off the white lights. And now in the dark, I can turn on my focus switch on my enlarger timer, and I can move my contact printer. So now I know that when I set my paper in here, it's going to be covered by light all the way edge to edge, which is what we want. I'm going to turn that off. I'm going to go into my paper. I'm going to do this one-handed, which is super fun. I'm going to take out a sheet of paper, but instead of using a whole sheet of paper, I'm actually going to break this into pieces. Let's see, I've got one piece right here, and I'm going to cut this paper into quarters. I didn't do this beforehand, and I should have. Folding it, and what I'm doing is by turning one sheet of paper and using only a quarter of it at a time, I'm able to test my exposure without wasting so much paper. So let me get this folded nicely. I think the paper cover is still in here. And I'm going to switch this around like that. I'm not sure if I'm in the frame. Hopefully I am. And so I've got one sheet of paper folded into fourths, and I'm going to tear it the short way. So once it's creased a couple of times, I actually have enough for a strip. And I should have prepped that beforehand, but I didn't. Let me flip this back around with the strip in place. I've got the emulsion side facing up, and it's going to go under the glass with my negatives. So I'm going to lift this up, set my strip across the middle like that, put my negatives across the strip like that. It's a little hard to see in the dark, but you can see the edges of my test strip of paper right there. And it's important that you can see the edges of the strip, because I need to take my cardboard and I need to cover part of that strip. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to set my timer for 5 seconds, and actually I'm going to set my lens to a middle setting like F8. Let's do F8. And I'm going to expose my paper for 5 seconds at a time, gradually revealing a little more of the paper as we go along. And I'll show you what that's going to do when I develop that in a second. So I got this. I've got a narrow strip of paper right there. Turn on my enlarger for 5 seconds. Turns off. I move my cardboard and expose a little more of my strip of paper. 5 more seconds. You get the idea. And we're going to repeat this pattern 2 more times. And what this is going to do when the strip is developed is it's going to show us different exposure times all within the same strip of paper. And it's going to go light to dark, the least amount of time, to the most amount of time, in 5-second increments, because I used 5 seconds on my timer. So I take my strip out from underneath my paper, or my negatives, I mean, and I go over to my outside tray filled with developer already. Keep an eye on my timer, and I'm going to lift the corner of the tray, which agitates the chemistry, and you can see right away that my film is showing up in little strips on my paper. And what I want is I want to pay attention to the darkest strip to see if those negatives start to, the edges of my film start to disappear. And right here, I actually, I think I've gone too far with my negatives, I'm sorry, with the light on the enlarger, and it's going to be a little bit too light. So I would actually go and make a second test strip of paper using a brighter and larger setting, and that I'll start with that in my next video.